You've probably heard the saying before, practice makes perfect. I will tell you, practice makes permanent, but practice does not always make perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect. So what happens when we practice is our brain is forming these pathways, like roads throughout our brain, these nerve pathways. And when you repeat something over and over again, it adds what's called a myelin sheath. It's like insulation around that pathway for that action. And the more you repeat it, the thicker that sheath gets and the less energy is lost along that pathway. It's like turning it from a country road into a superhighway. So the more you repeat it, the more it becomes a habit and the more efficiently you can complete that action without having to think as hard about it. So whatever you're repeating becomes a habit. If you're repeating the wrong thing, then you're going to get the wrong habit, the wrong action, and it will become more permanent. Whereas if you practice the correct thing, perfect practice, then you're building in that perfect performance and making that your habit. So the difference between practicing and playing is that practice is intentional. Practice has a goal. Playing, anybody can sit down and play, right? But practice has a goal. It's more than just repeating something, it's repeating the right things. And because of that, practice requires focus and attention. You have to be paying attention to what you're playing. You have to stop and fix mistakes, right? You have to set a goal and make a plan to get there. So, how does that happen? How do we practice well? And this is something that I work with all my students on and that I think everybody can continue to improve on is practicing well. First thing is set a goal. It might be, I want to fix this measure of this song, or I want to learn the A section. I want to be able to play the right hand. Whatever your goal is, figure out what you want to accomplish in that sitting, in that session, and then make a plan. What are you going to do to get there? You're not just going to play it over and over and over again. Well, maybe you will, but that's not the only strategy you can use, right? There are other options. So a few practice strategies. The number one thing I tell all my students is take it slowly. Slow down. And I hated being told that when I was a student, but I have learned to do it and it makes things so much better. It helps to use a metronome sometimes when you're playing slowly. If you don't know what a metronome is, it's a little machine that ticks and keeps a steady beat, or sometimes you can set it to just blink a light and keep a steady beat. Set it as slow as you possibly can. Take it painfully slowly, like as slow as you can manage to play. And this is especially true if it's a faster piece with a lot of notes. Slow, 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 slow. And then speed it up little by little. I say one tick at a time, which is a few beats per minute at a time. If you have to, if you're really struggling with a portion of it, ignore the tempo, ignore even the timing and the rhythms. Focus on just transitioning your hands or your voice or whatever you're playing or singing from one note or chord to the next one. Don't worry about the rhythm, just focus on that transition until you can do it smoothly. break it down into bite-sized chunks rather. So maybe you need to, if you're playing piano, maybe you need to do each hand by itself, or even guitar. Maybe you need to focus on just the left hand fingers and then just on the strum pattern. Maybe you need to break it into smaller pieces, a phrase, a couple measures, one measure, one note, one chord, one beat. Whatever that bite-sized chunk is for you, break it down. And then gradually, as you get each piece down, then put the pieces back together. You can also try a different order. Sometimes if you're getting stuck on something, it's nice to mix it up a little bit. Maybe isolate a tricky spot, right? If there's that one measure that keeps tripping you up, stop and work on just that one measure. Sometimes it's helpful, I use this a lot in lessons, to work from the end to the beginning. So work backwards on a song or just a section of a song. Maybe start with the last measure, and then when you can play that measure, then back up and play the last two measures and work from there. That way you're adding small pieces, but you're always working towards something you already know. Plus, if your ending, where you're starting, is that tricky spot, you're going to be playing it over and over and over again. Each time you add a little bit more, you play to the end, you're building up the strength at the ending rather than all your strength at the beginning, and then the end is kind of dwindles off and fades into the distance. It also helps to focus on form. If you have a section that's repeated multiple times, it probably doesn't need as much attention as the section that doesn't get repeated, because that section that doesn't get repeated doesn't get as much practice naturally. So you have to artificially practice it more so that it's at the same level as the repeated section. Sometimes it helps to say things out loud. My students hate when I tell them to say the letter names out loud, but it does help you process what notes you are playing. Right? Letter names, chord names. Sometimes it helps to count out loud. Sometimes it may even help to, call out the chord changes. I do that frequently with guitar students where we're playing, and I'll call out the counts for the measure and when we're about to change chords. So that one takes a little more practice if you're going to give a cue, because you have to be able to talk and play at the same time. It also helps to mark it up. Now, I'm a reading and writing learner, so this helps me a lot, but a musician always has a pencil. Write in the names of the notes if you have to. Circle or highlight difficult spots or points that you really need to pay attention to and give extra focus. Write in the counts if that's giving you problems. Number your measures so you have a reference point. Whatever helps you to remember what you need to do, write on your music. All of my music is marked up that I've played. And it also helps to take notes in your practice and in your lessons. Besides just marking on your music, consider keeping a practice journal. Write down each time you practice, what did you work on? What did you do to work on it? What worked? What didn't work? What did you get stuck on? What goals do you have for a future practice session? Is there any question or challenge you ran into that you want to make sure you bring up at your next lesson? And take notes at those lessons. So if you brought questions, what were the answers? What strategies did your teacher suggest during your lesson that you want to remember and use in your own practice? What worked for you? What made sense? What do you need to remember to work on? Is there something you want to try during your own personal practice time? So, taking notes during your practice and during your lessons can help you keep track of those strategies and keep track of what you need to remember and what you need to focus on. My last practice tip is consistency. That repetition is what helps form the myelin sheath, but we want to avoid fatigue at the same time. 10 minutes a day is way better than an hour only once a week. Those shorter practice sessions help you to avoid getting tired mentally and physically. They help improve your focus because you only have to focus for that short period. And let's face it, we're all busy, so a short practice session will help you fit it into your busy schedule. If you want to practice 4 different times during the day, be my guest as long as you're focused and you have a goal and you're paying attention to what you're playing. And remember, it's okay to take a break. If you're getting frustrated, if you've hit a roadblock, stop, walk away, go do something else, and come back when you're fresh and you're relaxed and ready to work on it again. So there you go. Those are Mrs. Westaby's practice tips. Happy practicing.